Hello YouTube. Today I'll be talking about the anime Shiki, and more specifically focusing on the character of Sunako. Sunako is a girl whose youth was stolen from her at a young age, and she hasn't been able to cope with that properly, instead using methods such as starting her own sort of family with the Shikis and trying to turn the world that is around her into something that fits and is molded around her. I do not believe that Sunako is really a bad person, truly. She does horrible things as a Shiki and has caused the death of many, but I do not feel that that within itself makes her who she is. Even though I do not support the fact that she's trying to turn people into Shiki, I do feel that somewhere inside of her, and we do see this with her interactions with the young monk, that she may be a corpse, but there's still emotion, and she's still the little girl that is scared and wants to fit in and wants to be accepted. It's truly sad how the events go down in the show, and how she's not. Oh man, it's just so tough to think about it, really. I mean, Sunako is just, she does evil things, but she's not an evil person. That's what I'm trying to say, pretty much. I do feel that she does things that could not be supported by anybody who has some sort of a conscience. But I do feel the way the Shikis are slaughtered after a while in the show is something that I can't support myself personally. I do feel that the humans sort of became hollow and started to turn into the very things they were fighting against. But that's the beauty of it, is that it shows true human emotion and the fear of being swallowed by these Shikis made the humans act in such a violent and barbaric way that at some point they stopped caring about the fact. They became numb, I should say, to the fact that they were murdering and they were killing Shikis. They did not care anymore, and they hungered for the end of the existence of Shikis. I feel that there was one particular scene that really sold me on this philosophy, and that was when the villagers, it was the women of the village, and they had just finished slaughtering all these Shikis pretty much, and putting them in body bags, and they just nonchalantly just sort of went over and started eating food. And one girl, she had blood on her hand, but then she wiped it on her apron, and she moved on to eating like they had not just committed any sort of atrocity. And I felt at that point that was when I was sold on the entire show of Shiki, and I was sold on the idea that this is true human emotion, and that this could happen, and this is what would probably happen with humans if they were ever to be faced against this type of monstrosity known as the Shikis. I do feel that some Shikis are pure evil and, deserve to be killed and all that stuff, but I do feel there's good seeds and bad seeds in each side of the spectrum. The humans on this show, they do some vile things, and the Shikis, they do some vile things. And then some people might argue that the humans, they were just a product of what's happening. They weren't just gonna lay down and let the Shikis do this to them. But I feel that both sides, if they could have communicated to each other, if they could have spoke, if they could have understood each other, then all that bloodshed would not have been needed. If the Shikis simply had a different plan instead of just killing all these humans, I do feel that maybe they wouldn't have died. There's just so many twists and so many different characters and so many different emotions tied into it. You can't really pick a side with this show. But anyways, I should focus on Sunako. And Sunako, from a young age of about 13 or 9 or however old she looks like, she's about 9, but I think she's 13 officially. She is bitten by a Shiki at a party that her parents host, and from then on she becomes a Shiki, and she starts this whole journey. And she's been alive for probably 100+ years by now, and every single I just feel like there's one quote that she says. She says, "I think death is equally terrible for everyone. Young people, old people, the good, the bad. It's always the same. It's rather fair in its treatment." And I feel like by the end of the show, she feels scared, and she, for the first time, starts to feel sorrow, and asks, and she's just completely petrified about dying. At that point, you see that behind all this tough talk, and behind being sort of like the mastermind behind this whole plan, and all these different things that we know of her by that point, she fears the end of her life, just like anybody else would. And this whole idea that Shikis don't have emotions was broken for me at that point, because then I realized, would something that would have no emotions fear for the end of their life? Would they really fear for it? I don't think so, honestly. I don't believe so. I believe by wiping out the Shikis, on one hand you're doing a favor to some of them, but the ones that want to live, the ones that don't want to kill, like Richan for example, do they deserve to die? Do they deserve to be killed? I mean, it's a complicated argument, but definitely one worth making. So I do think Sunako's a good character. I did support her by the end of the show, and even throughout the show I didn't think of her as that bad, because I saw it as she's doing something to survive, and she's doing something to keep herself, and she from losing that human side of her. She's trying to create a family. She's trying to make everybody like her, and that's a very childish and selfish thing to do, but that just shows that she still is a child. She still doesn't. She's a child that needs guidance and needs love in her life, and she's constantly trying to recreate that throughout her 100+ years, throughout her searching, throughout everything that she's gone through. She's always trying to recreate that love that she so sorely misses, and that saddened me when I was watching the show. I felt emotions. I felt bad for her. I felt horrible about myself, even feeling bad for her, because I'm like, hey, remember, this isn't somebody you're supposed to feel bad for. This is a Shiki, remember. This is an evil monster. She doesn't deserve any sympathy. But I couldn't help myself, and I did feel bad for her. I felt bad for a lot of the Shikis when they were being slaughtered. I found it hard to watch at some points as well. And I found myself caring about each side, but less and less for the humans as it went on. I felt that the humans were selfish, and so were the Shikis, but that's nature. Humans don't want to be wiped out, and neither do the Shikis. The Shikis don't want to be wiped out. They want to be accepted. They want to be somebody. They want to live. They don't want to die. That's why they keep sucking the blood. That's why they keep on killing more and more, because that thirst that they have for blood is worse than starvation for them. I can't blame something for wanting to live. Just like I wouldn't want to die. I can't expect them to be some moral compass of some sort of ideal human ideology. They have flaws. They're selfish. They want to have a life, and I can't fault them for taking some. I mean, I could fault them in a way where if I'm sitting on top of some moral high ground where I'm on top and I'm a completely perfect human, then I could judge them at that point. But I cannot, because if I found myself in their situation, I would probably do the same thing. And is that a selfish choice? Yes, it is. I would try to find an alternative, but if I couldn't and I was going to die, then I don't know if I would be able to control myself, to be honest. It's something that I would have to be in that situation to understand and to know and to grasp my decision making in that situation. But I felt sympathy for them, because I felt that the Shikis are misunderstood in a way. And I know this isn't going to be a popular opinion, but this is just something that I feel was masterfully done throughout the show. It was very well done. It was a sort of catapult of emotions thrown at you from each side of the warring parties, sort of. You see a human. You saw that mother, I forgot her name, but the one that her children die, and she has her son rotting away in a bathtub, and she has him in her hands. and then after that she goes and takes him, before he rots and stuff like that, she takes him to the clinic, but it's the day that it was closed because the doctor was experimenting on his wife who had just turned into a Shiki. And that makes me sympathize with the humans, because then I think about it and I'm like, oh man, if it wasn't for the Shikis, this woman wouldn't have to suffer, this innocent woman that has no fault besides loving her family and her children. She has to suffer because of something that's out of her control. And that's the deepened sadness of it all, is that this is a metaphor for how the everyday person gets affected by the decisions of people that are above them and have more power. Sunako's not thinking about things like this when she's making her opinion, when she's making her thing, her plan. She's thinking about herself. The doctor's not thinking about this everyday woman when he decides to operate on his wife. He's thinking about the bigger picture of the village instead of thinking of the individual. And I can't fault either of these people for making that type of decisions. And I support the way the doctor butchered his wife and did not even bother to explain to her what was going on, or did not show any type of compassion or love towards somebody who's supposed to be his wife, who he's supposed to care for. But at the same time, I thought about it, and I discussed this with some of my friends, and I realized that the doctor, like I said before, he's not thinking at that moment. He's in a state of shock, sort of, as it was explained to me. But I did not agree with this 100%, but I could kind of see it, and I could understand it. I could understand the doctor. I can understand characters like Natsuno who don't want to involve themselves in these affairs of Shiki versus humans or anything like that. Natsuno says this line to Tatsumi. He says he's not on the human sides, but he just doesn't like Shiki, and he's willing to sacrifice his life and everything in order for that to happen. In order for the Shikis to be wiped out, he's willing to let his life decompose. And Natsuno is the only selfless character in this entire show. He does not think about himself once. He thinks about the bigger picture. He thinks about something else deep inside of him, I guess. Something that drives him, something that keeps him from falling down the familiar path of a Shiki. And another person like him, is Richan. I know I just previously said that he's the only character who's not selfish in the show, but Richan is the ultimate sort of character that represents choice, represents freedom. She could have easily sucked blood. She could have easily been been a Shiki who like Toro, like all these countless Shiki that blame all these different factors besides themselves on their decision making. But she does not fall down this path. She remains strong in the face of hunger, in the face of starvation, and she does not fall prey to the feeling of being a Shiki. And that's complete self-control, and I respect that. That's why she's one of my favorite characters, and so is Natsuno. But I also like Sunako. I do not side with one side or the other. I like people from both sides of this of Shiki and humans, but I do not pick one over the other. I pick individuals over others. That's what I think. That's my opinion on it. I do believe that Sunako feels forsaken by God. She feels that she could stop doing these things. She could not stop doing these things because God did not step to her or tell her not to do it, or it's these sort of things that make me question what her true motives are, in a way. I mean, I understand her motives. I really do. But sometimes I think about it, and I say to myself, is Sunako who I think she is in the show, or is she something else entirely? It's just some things like that make me think, that make me wonder about things. Is she a villain? I don't really think of her as a villain. I believe she enjoys things like any other kid. She enjoys reading or talking or dressing up, making tea, making food, sort of playing the role of a human. She's playing the role of a human because she so desperately wants to be human. She so desperately wants to be normal, wants to be accepted, wants to walk the streets as a normal person, as a person who could be accepted, and as a person who could be seen as nothing more than their average girl. She's the last surviving Shiki by the end of the show. She's alone again. Alone as usual, but she's just such a sad person. She's such a sad character. And when Shizuru dies, a part of her dies with her. A person who she cared for, her sort of non-official sort of daughter, really. And yeah, I mean, what else could be sadder than losing somebody who you truly care for? And just to finish off, the only person that Sunako has, and the only person who even bothers to understand her is the young monk. The young monk is very flawed and has done some questionable things throughout the show, like betray humans and, you know, all these different things. It could be said either he's doing this for his own selfish reasons, or trying to find an answer that he can't find with humans. He feels like, I do feel that he's trying to repent for an action he took back when he tried to kill himself by being in church, by being a person of the temple. He's not truly religious or anything like that. It's more like he's there out of fear, out of some sort of commitment that he makes to either himself, or out of fear for being outcasted and sort of being treated as the quote-unquote Shiki, as something that's an outsider, something that's repelled out of this calm and serene village, this sort of white picket fence and you know, utopia of a society that they have. And I do feel that any outsider is treated differently. Like Megumi, for example, is kind of a huge bitch in my opinion, but I do feel that she's ostracized for something as simple as fashion, as her fashion choices before she turns into a Shiki. Something as simple as the fashion choices or something like that. Like, you know, she's just an outsider and she's not accepted by this sort of normal and peaceful village. But in general, just to finish this whole thing off, I do believe Shiki is a really amazing show. I give it about an 8.8 out of 10, personally speaking. I felt it was very powerful, and it led me to think. It led me to question things, and that's what's beautiful about it. That's what makes it such an amazing anime, is that it leaves you in this sort of middle ground that you have to make a choice. You have to question things and question not only things that are happening in the show, but question things deep down inside of you. What you think as a person, what makes you believe certain things, what makes you question certain things. I could not ask for a show better than that. Like I said before in some of my previous reviews, I like things that make me think, things that make me question, things that make me grow. And this show was one of them, one of those things that I ran across, and I'm thankful for that. And my favorite characters in the show are Natsuno, Sunako, and Richan. And I stand by that. I love all three of these characters for separate reasons, and I do believe that there's many others that are great as well. But that's it. I'll be speaking about each character in depth in future videos as well. So look